Let's talk a little bit about argumentative essay writing today. So at the top of your screen right now, you can see the Common Core standards for writing essays. And we'll talk a little bit about each part of this. So the important thing here is that you're able to support your claims with clear reasons and relevant evidence. The whole point of an argumentative essay is to have a written out, well-reasoned argument. So the first thing that we look at is that we can introduce our claim, our stance on a topic, acknowledge and address opposing viewpoints, and organize our reasons and evidence logically. You support claims or counterarguments with logical reasoning and relevant evidence. You use accurate, credible sources, and you demonstrate understanding of the topic or text that you are writing about. We use words, phrases, and clauses to create cohesion, to make everything flow and connect, to clarify relationships among claims, reasons, and evidence. We establish and maintain a formal style, and we provide a concluding statement or section that follows from and supports the argument presented. We begin our argumentative essay with the introduction. The first sentence of your introduction should be a hook. This is an attention getter that helps to get your audience's attention. The second step of your introduction is where you provide the background information on your topic, whatever you think your reader needs to know before reading your argument. And the third and final step of your introduction is your thesis. This is the roadmap of your paper and should state very clearly your opinion or stance on the topic, and very briefly the reasons that you have for that. So here's what your introduction should look like. You have a hook, which might be an original question that's not something too cliche. It might be a quotation from your reading or general knowledge. It could be a statistic relating to your topic, or a story bite or anecdote that's very brief but helps to introduce the topic of your essay. The background information is where you lead from the hook into your thesis and connect them together. If you're writing about a text, you would tag it. If you're writing on a topic, you want to give general information, something like a current issue of debate is recycling at schools. What constitutes recycling at schools? This might entail, and introduce the main idea. And the last step of your intro is your thesis, which is a strong statement which gives the answer to the prompt provided, your opinion or stance on the topic. Ideally, this is one sentence, so you want to keep it very clear, short, and concise, while still outlining the key ideas you're going to talk about in your essay. After your introduction, you have your body paragraphs. We're using the Schaefer style format for your body paragraphs this year. So you'll begin with a topic sentence, which states the main idea of that paragraph. It should connect very clearly and specifically to your thesis. After your topic sentence, you include your concrete details or your evidence. This is where you give some context, quote relevant evidence, and then you lead into the commentary where you explain the concrete detail, how it supports your thesis, why it's important. This is really important because this is your analysis. An important component to argumentative writing is the counterargument. And this is where you address an opposing viewpoint, show that you understand why someone else might feel differently than you do, or why they might have concerns. But then you want to provide a solution, disprove its credibility, or in other ways kind of assuage the concerns of those who might be on the opposing side of your topic. Ideally, this is included within your body paragraphs as a second chunk, or you have your counter argument as a totally separate body paragraph just before the conclusion. This can be done either way, and it depends on what you think the opposing side will have concerns about. If you feel that they will oppose every one of the reasons you've brainstormed, then you probably want to counter their concerns in each of your body paragraphs. If, however, you feel they have one sort of general or overarching concern, that might be better countered in its own separate body paragraph. So depending upon your topic and the reasons that you brainstorm on your T-chart before beginning your writing, you can decide the best way to include your counter. When you're writing your body paragraphs, make sure to give context for your evidence. Don't plug in a quotation all by itself, but use a signal phrase, which is a phrase, a clause, or even a whole sentence that gives some background information and leads into your quotation or statistic. Often these include your source, the speaker or author that you are quoting, and or some justification for using them as the expert. So these are some model signal phrases that you might use in the words of researchers, as this author has noted. This person, why they are relevant to this topic, points out that. Then I have a chart here of sample active verbs that you can use in your signal phrases. You can say the expert asserts that, the author of this article argues, this example illustrates my point. Any of these are stronger than just saying says every time. And in your counter argument, there are a few ways of introducing your evidence. While you're presenting your acknowledgement of their concerns and entertaining their objections, you can say, yes, some readers may challenge the view that, after all, they believe, this. Of course, many will probably disagree with this assertion. You want to acknowledge their concerns. You may want to name specific naysayers, specific people or groups of people that you think would object with the point that you're trying to make. You might want to introduce objections informally by using rhetorical questions. Is this proposal realistic? What are the chances of it actually being adopted? Are those questions that a naysayer might have? Yes. You might want to make concessions, so kind of qualify while still standing your ground. Although it is possible that you might point out, sort of an unlikely scenario, but a potential situation where your stance doesn't apply or might not be perfect. But then refocus it. The big idea, the reality is most of the time, it does not necessarily follow that. And still keep your point strong. It is also important to use transitions in your writing. These can be single word transitions that help to connect sentences, but they can also be whole phrase or even whole sentence transitions that help flow from one paragraph to the next. I recommend ending your body paragraphs with a transition before moving into the next body paragraph. As we've seen in this paragraph, point X, but also point Y to help you move into the topic of your next paragraph. Obviously, you would write it more formally than that, but that's the gist of the feeling that you want to get from your transition. The final step of our argumentative essay is the conclusion. And much like a conclusion in an informative or explanatory essay, you begin by restating your thesis. You use different words so that it's not overly redundant. You might add a little to it, but the gist of your thesis is the same. Your claim should not have changed over the course of your argument. Then you summarize your key evidence and counter-argument. Remind people of the good points that you made throughout your essay. And end with a new thoughtful perspective, something that has a broader significance, a call to action, some kind of general statement that leaves your reader with something to think about. A final thing you want to keep in mind when you are writing any formal academic paper, not limited to, but including argumentative essays, is that we write with a formal writing style. It's totally normal to have different ways of speaking and writing depending upon the situation that you're in. You might write informally and using abbreviations and slang and things like that when you're talking to a friend or when you're texting someone, and that may be perfectly acceptable for that situation. There's nothing wrong with writing or speaking in a way that is comfortable and natural when you're talking, or writing in a casual circumstance. When you are writing in a more formal circumstance, however, you're writing an academic paper for school, you're writing a letter to the editor hoping to be published in some kind of publication, you're writing a letter of introduction, a cover letter, a job application, something like that, where you really want to put your best foot forward and give the best impression. And then we use a little bit of a formal writing style. And the purpose of this is to show that you're really well prepared, that you put thought and care into your composition, that you are educated and well informed. So these are some guidelines to keep in mind when you are thinking about using a formal writing style. Your paragraphs are typically on the longer side. They're going to be maybe 8 or perhaps even a little bit longer. If you are writing a multiple chunk body paragraph, something like an introduction or conclusion is typically going to be briefer and more concise and probably closer to 5 sentences, but it is very unlikely that you would have a short paragraph of 2 or 3 sentences in an academic paper. You want to include a variety of sentence structure, which means some simple sentences, some compound, some complex, etc. Give some variety, and also a variety of sentence starters. Don't begin every sentence with the. You want to vary your word choice and use specific vocabulary. So those strong verbs that we looked at are a much better way of describing your viewpoints or presenting your evidence than saying said or stated every time. If you are talking about a particular topic that has domain-specific vocabulary words that are particular to that topic, you want to use those in ways that show you understand your topic. Be specific with your vocabulary. We typically write in the third person for academic papers unless it's clearly a personal prompt. If the prompt asks you for your own opinion, to describe your own experience, then of course it's okay to use I. But generally speaking, to give a more unbiased, objective feel to your essay, we stick to third person. When you are writing about literature, we stay in the present tense, as in that literature is always happening, it exists all the time. If you are not writing about literature, past tense is okay. That'll just depend on your topic. And then we avoid contractions, abbreviations, and slang. The general rule is if you can write it out more formally and completely, then do that. All right, so let's look at some samples. These are 2 samples we're going to look at on the topic of napping and whether or not napping is beneficial or something that people should do. So we'll call this first one sample Y. The title is Naps, and they have included subheadings within their essay. Claim: napping is beneficial for everyone, even adults. Naps are short periods of sleep during the day. When your body is rested, it is relaxed, so it reduces your stress and tension, causing you to increase your focus. One of the benefits of naps is helping recover the time you spend awake at night. Other benefits of naps are boosting your memory, alertness, creativity, and the cognitive function. Support 1. Napping could improve productivity. When napping, your mind is freed from distractions. Therefore, you are more focused, and when you are more focused, your productivity increases. Studies showed that napping can reduce drowsiness and fatigue while improving your short-term memory. This causes memories to be retained for longer. Support 2. Naps could also benefit your health. After naps, you are more alert, so your performance is enhanced. By being alert, you are reducing stress and tension, increasing the cognitive function, the way how your brain retains knowledge, and your creativity. Conclusion: naps are great for everyone, kids and adults alike. You can focus and improve your health at the same time. These are my reasons for why naps are great for everyone. So there are some good general ideas in here, but it needs to be polished. First, we look at the introduction. There's not really a hook to grab the reader's attention. There is some background information. They've defined terms here by stating what naps are. And there's a basic claim, but it's not necessarily a single sentence that states their opinion and their brief reasons. They also included, it feels like, some attempts at evidence in the intro, and that's really not what your introduction is for. Then we have 2 body paragraphs, which could have their topic sentences more specifically tied to the thesis, but they're not terrible. They do state the main idea of the paragraph. Grammatically, there are a few issues that could be tidied up. There is some evidence, but it needs to be cited. So even when you have good reasons, you want to borrow credibility of experts by citing them and referring to them within your writing, according to this study by whatever university, or based on the evidence found by well-known researcher, whomever. When you do those things, that adds to your ethos, to your credibility, and it makes it more likely that people will listen to your argument. And finally, there's not a strong counter-argument in here. We need to acknowledge that not everyone is going to agree with us, to address their concerns, and that's really not done here. And then the conclusion sentence, well, I suppose it's a few sentences. The conclusion paragraph does begin with the claim that naps are great for everyone, which seems to be the focus of their essay. But the final sentence is pretty weak. This is not a statement of broader significance. It's not a call to action. It's not something that's going to leave people with something to think about. So this could certainly be improved. We're going to look at this second one. The title is Naps for the Win. 85% of animal species nap during the day. In countries like Spain and Greece, there is a long-standing tradition of siesta, a break from daily activities to rest. These natural and lasting nap traditions must have come about for a good reason. That reason is that, scientifically speaking, naps are generally beneficial for people's alertness and health when done properly. Naps have been proven to increase alertness and productivity. Mark Rosekind of NASA, who conducted the research, stated that even a 26-minute nap boosted a pilot's mental performance by 34%. A 45-minute nap gave roughly the same mental boost, but the boost lasted more than 6 hours. Source 2. This study by NASA is only one of many which have found the benefits of napping. Many people have had the experience of taking a long nap and waking up feeling groggy and disoriented, and may feel that naps make a tough situation worse. However, science has shown that nappers who wake up during light sleep as opposed to deep sleep actually wake up refreshed and with boosted energy and capacity. Source 5. Surprisingly, naps affect not only mood and performance, but also one's health. Naps have been proven to reduce the likelihood of the nation's #1 killer. In 2007, a study by the Harvard School of Public Health discovered that people who took 30-minute naps at least 3 times a week were 37% less likely to die of heart disease. Source 2. Could it be that our bodies need a little downtime, and a short nap can provide just that? With advanced technology, people are connected all the time, and this often leads to constant activity that wears people down. Some people, particularly in the busy American culture, feel that naps are an ineffective use of time, when there are so many other things that someone could be accomplishing. However, what they fail to recognize is that everyone needs a balance. Some of the most famous people of all time, including Albert Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci, not only created lasting inventions in art, but they napped too. Source 2. Dismissing daytime naps as a mere waste of time would be a mistake. Clearly, napping for the suggested amount of time is generally good for people because it can boost alertness and increase productivity. When nighttime slumber just wasn't enough, a simple 24-minute nap can wake us from light sleep, primed and ready to be productive. Naps can also decrease the likelihood of premature death by heart disease. The best piece of advice to someone is to listen to their body. If they're tired, take a power nap. At best, they'll feel rested and more productive. At worst, they lost time to watch a cheesy episode on Netflix. Maybe 85% of the animal species have the right idea. All right, so in this second sample, we see a few things that are noteworthy. We have a quotation, we have our quotations cited throughout the body paragraphs. We've used a statistic for a hook, given background information on the topic, and concluded with a single sentence claim that naps are generally beneficial. Each body paragraph, begins with a topic sentence that states one of the reasons supporting that claim. There's evidence, which is cited and then explained, more evidence, cited and explained. There is a counter argument addressing that some people feel naps are an ineffective use of time, which was then disproved with paraphrased and cited evidence. And then the conclusion restates the thesis, sums up the main idea, and comes full circle back around to the hook. So that ends with the general concluding statement there. Is it a perfect essay? No, of course there are some grammatical things that could be improved or some wording that could be clarified. But generally speaking, this follows the format very well and does what an argumentative essay needs to do, which is present a clear claim, give well-reasoned evidence, and address a counter claim.